Let me say this the way it actually happened, without the hero edit or the corporate polish. I was halfway through a rubbery piece of steak at the hotel ballroom when my boss leaned over my shoulder, smiled tight enough to cut skin, and said, "This seat's for the investor, not you." I could feel the room clock its head toward us, the clink of cutlery, the hush that always arrives right before a small humiliation turns public. I got up. I slid my chair back so cleanly it didn't even scrape. And in that 3-second silence between the chair and the carpet, I decided he would never do this to me again. It was the company dinner that's less about food and more about orbit. The kind where you can smell money under the cologne, and the floral centerpieces are there to hide the fact that everyone's watching everyone else count proximity. We'd taken the middle strip of tables in the Grand Lake Ballroom, a screensaver of a view, white linens, brandy the color of approval. The investor was late, that was the point. Important people arrive like weather, and you learn to sit where the rain will hit you. For context, I'm not the wunderkind. I'm the guy who reads the footnotes and remembers who actually wrote them. My name on the org chart lives 3 rectangles below the stage lights, which is exactly where due diligence lives when a deal goes right, and exactly where heads roll when it doesn't. For 2 months I'd been living inside a data room no one else had the patience for. Vendor contracts, deferred maintenance schedules, that one lease addendum from 2017 that can knife EBITDA if you read page 4 without blinking. We were courting Helios Capital for a growth round. I'd built the model that made the deck look inevitable. When he said it, "This seat's for the investor," he didn't whisper. He pitched it just loud enough for the table to hear. Our COO, 2 directors, comms, and the VP, who likes to repeat your joke later as if he's thought of it. I stood. He tapped the back of my chair twice, like claiming land. "Good man," he added, smiling at the room without looking at me. My water glass was still sweating on the linen. I picked it up, moved 2 seats down to the drafty edge, the place they give to vendors and nephews. I felt the cold more than the slight. That told me what I needed to know. People always think the wound is the words. It isn't. It's what the words tell you about where you really stand. That night, my boss wasn't protecting the optics of a deal. He was protecting the story where he alone saves us. Investors like a single throat to choke. He wanted to gift them mine, pre-removed, just in case. So I sat at the edge and watched him practice the laugh he saves for money. He checked his watch. He checked the door. He checked his reflection in the back of a spoon. Helios arrived like the rumor of Helios, a lean guy in a navy suit that didn't try too hard, a woman with a notebook she never opened because she'd already done the work, and a junior with a face that said, he knew where the real bodies are, in the footnotes, and the hallway after. I knew the junior, not friends, not even acquaintances, but we'd both worn the same analyst shame years back at a conference in Denver. A late-night coffee, a shared joke about a partner who believed Excel was a feelings app. His name is Aaron. Aaron doesn't forget who sends the clean spreadsheet at 1:42 a.m. Introductions blurred into the jingle of glassware. My boss performed. He performed so well, I almost believed the numbers he was performing with. EBITDA, normalized. Churn, improving. CapEx, front-loaded. Each word pressed and starched, each caveat shaved until it looked like certainty. He patted the head of my model like a golden retriever and called it a team effort, then moved his hand away before anyone could ask where the team was sitting. I took notes I didn't need to take so my hands would have somewhere else to be. The first real tell wasn't a number. It was the investor's silence when he looked at the slide with the maintenance roll-up. The kind of quiet that means math is happening behind the face. He didn't ask his question there. He asked it later, casually, like you ask for the salt. And the lease on the south facility? Extension executed? My boss smiled the way you smile on autopilot. Executed and favorable. He didn't blink. The junior, Aaron, didn't either. He tilted his head. Tiny like you tilt when you hear a note almost, but not quite in tune. I kept my face neutral. The extension wasn't executed. It was a letter of intent with a landlord who loved chess more than rent. My boss wasn't lying exactly. He was speaking in the tense you use when you want a thing to be true enough that it behaves. I could have corrected him. I could have said, "It's an LOI pending board approval," which is the kind of harmless correction that only kills you later. I didn't. I drank water. I watched the investor watch us. Dinner arrived with the ceremony of an apology. Plates down, chrome domes off. The server announcing a reduction that had never reduced anything in the history of sauces. My boss leaned into Helios, lowering his voice, intimacy for hire. He took ownership of our past misalignments, promised operational rigor, the whole hymn. He did not once say my name, which was fine. I was busy breathing through the part where your pride wants to talk before your plan is ready. Plans don't start as plans. They start as a tiny decision not to defend yourself. I let the slight stand. I let him own the center of the table like he'd put a deed on it. I counted the seconds between investor questions and answers. I counted the times Aaron's eyes found the edge of the room and returned. When the dessert plates landed, Helios asked for a quick walkthrough of the post-close roadmap. My boss forgot, for 6 sentences, that synergies aren't actions. He said we'd unlock value. The investor nodded once politely. Aaron made a note he didn't need to make. On the way to coffee, the investor broke formation. He stopped at my end of the table, the drafty edge where the linen lifts. "Your finance?" he asked. Light like small talk, heavy like a test. "Ops and finance," I said. He smiled. Small. Ops is where the numbers happen. It wasn't a compliment. It was a recognition. His hand moved once, barely visible. A card slid under my notebook like a magician's coin. No flourish, no wink, just, "If you have any follow-ups, send them directly." My boss didn't see the card. He was busy waving down the server for a brandy he doesn't drink. He laughed at a joke the investor didn't make. He owned the room so hard that no one noticed it had already shifted 2 degrees. I didn't touch the card. I didn't look at it. I kept my hands on the table, open, like I had nothing to hide, because I didn't. People think retribution is loud. It isn't. It's a series of precise, quiet movements that look like courtesy until the last inch. I said goodnight, like a man who'd been put in his place and learned to enjoy the view from there. I shook the investor's hand the way you shake a bridge to test its load. My boss patted my back twice. Again the claim. "Great support tonight," he said. "We'll debrief in the morning." He said "we" and meant, "You'll listen while I hear myself back." In the elevator down to street level, I finally looked at the card. Name, sell, a handwritten line, after 7 a.m. No emoji, no flourish, the kind of invitation that understands time zones and consequences. I slid the card back into the notebook and watched my reflection in the mirror. Tie a little off, eyes a little clearer than they'd been an hour before. Outside, December had turned the city into glass. I let the cold bite until it reached the place where anger hardens into something you can use. I didn't know it yet, but the chair he took from me at dinner was the cheapest thing he'd touched that week. The next morning I came into the office before sunrise. Not out of loyalty, but habit. There's a difference. Loyalty makes you early because you care. Habit makes you early because you've seen what happens when you're late. The place still smelled like carpet cleaner and stale ambition. My boss's door was already cracked open. The man barely slept when there was power to be displayed. His jacket was on the back of the chair, his phone on speaker, and his voice had that performative warmth people use when they're lying to someone richer than them. "Our projections are strong, and we're confident about the close-by Friday," he said. I waited by the glass wall. He didn't see me. Yes, the model was my direct work. My team just helped with data cleanup. My team? Meaning me. He hung up and turned with the faux startle of someone who's practiced it. "Oh, you're here early." "Always am," I said. He smiled like a teacher grading your obedience. "Good. We've got follow-ups to prep for Helios. They asked for clarifications on maintenance liabilities. You'll handle that, right? I thought you said it was all clear last night. Investors always want more detail, he said, looking at himself in the reflection of the glass. Not at me. Just make sure it matches the deck. The last thing we need is noise. That word, noise, meant truth that didn't fit the narrative. I nodded, walked back to my desk, and opened the model. Columns, numbers, sheets. This was the world where people like him steal credit, and people like me keep the world from collapsing. I rechecked the South Facility line, still an LOI, still unsigned, but now, on the shared drive, the same lease was marked executed. Someone had uploaded a scanned PDF of a signature that didn't exist last week. I zoomed in. The timestamp said midnight. He hadn't just lied verbally, he'd manufactured proof. I took screenshots, saved them to a private folder, and felt my pulse start to climb the way it does when the ground starts tilting, but no one else notices. Then I saw the email chain. Helios Diligence, final update. He'd CC'd me, but only after sending a redacted version to the investor, one that cut the sections I'd spent hours detailing about deferred maintenance. To him, truth wasn't data. It was delay. I sat there, watching my own work being scrubbed into something cleaner, smaller, less threatening to his story. Rage doesn't help you in rooms like ours. Precision does. I opened the note Helios's analyst, Aaron, had left on the card. After 7 a.m., it was 7:18. I dialed the number. 1 ring. 2. Morning, said a voice that didn't waste syllables. This is Daniel from Lumen. I know, Aaron said. You handled ops finance? Still do. There was a pause, not of surprise, but of calibration. You saw it, didn't you? I did. Good, he said. We did too. That stopped me. You mean, we have our own copy of the diligence room. The files don't match. His tone stayed neutral, but we wanted to see how far he'd take it. So what now? Now you let him hang himself a little more. Send me the clarifications he asked for. The real ones, off record. I hesitated. This wasn't a whistleblow yet, but it was a step into that airless place where truth becomes evidence. I'll send it, I said quietly. Good. And Daniel? His voice softened a fraction. You should come to tomorrow's off-site review. Unofficially. Don't tell him you're coming. How? You're on the security list, Aaron said. Helios requested you personally. He hung up before I could ask why. I spent the rest of the day ghosting through tasks. My boss strutted in and out of meetings, spouting timelines like sermon verses. By noon, the office was full of buzz. Helios had confirmed a site visit. Everyone was smiling except the one person who'd actually read the contracts. I sent the real files to Aaron through a secure link, my fingers steady for the first time all morning. At 4, my boss called a prep huddle. He gathered us in the glass room, sleeves rolled, tie loosened for the illusion of camaraderie. Team, he said, tomorrow's our moment. The investor's ready. Let's make sure no one gets creative with the narrative. He looked right at me when he said creative. Understood, I said. He smiled that thin smile again. Good man. Same words as the night before. Same tone. It landed differently now. After the meeting, I packed my bag slowly. He watched me through the glass, pretending to text, the way predators pretend to nap. I walked past his office, heard him calling someone, his tone sugar-sweet. Yes, the numbers are aligned, completely verified by my finance lead. He was already using me as a reference for his fiction. Outside, the air tasted like metal and frost. I stopped by a cafe, ordered nothing, just stood near the heat vent and read the last email from Aaron. Subject, clarifications received. Thank you. Body. But that was just the beginning. That line, deliberate, precise, wasn't just a phrase. It was a signal. Something in me clicked. All the months of quiet compliance, the swallowing of credit, the polite yeses, they had built a fuse. I could feel it now, humming under my ribs. This wasn't going to be a whisper behind closed doors. It was going to be geometry, clean, inevitable, untraceable. When I got home, I poured a glass of water and stared at my reflection on the dark window. I wasn't angry anymore. I was something sharper. The next morning at 9 a.m., the company shuttle to the offsite was already idling at the curb. My boss stood by the door, grinning at Helios's assistant, radiating false modesty. "Big day," he said when he saw me. "You ready to make me proud?" "Always," I said, and meant something he didn't hear. The ride was quiet. Out the window, the skyline bent into fog, glass giving way to warehouse roofs. Every time my phone buzzed, his head twitched. He thought it was Helios. It wasn't. It was Aaron. Room 3B. Sit back. Row. By the time we arrived, I already knew something was about to shift, and then silence, the kind that means something's gone wrong. The silence wasn't the awkward kind you fill with coughs and rustling papers. It was the kind that rearranges the air, the kind that tells you someone, somewhere, has just realized they are in trouble. We'd just arrived at the offsite, a sterile glass conference center by the river, the kind that smells of coffee, whiteboards, and quiet panic. The Helios team was already there. No greetings this time, no polite smile, just a table with nameplates, 3 on their side, 2 on ours, and a third one, empty. My boss's name. He blinked. "Where's my seat?" Aaron looked up from his laptop. "Oh, Michael, right? There's been a slight change. The meeting's just internal for the first 30 minutes. I wasn't informed." "Really?" Aaron's tone was all velvet and blade. "Strange. The email went to your company address." My boss laughed, forced, too loud, must have gone to spam. He stayed standing there, holding his tablet like a shield, the smile fighting to stay on. The investor, the same man from dinner, didn't look up. "We'll call you in after our review," he said. I watched it land, that half second when power realizes it's lost gravity. Michael hesitated, then turned toward me. "Daniel, come with me. We'll grab coffee." Aaron's voice sliced through the air. "Actually, Daniel stays." My boss stopped. "Excuse me?" "Ops and finance stays," Aaron repeated, still not looking up. "You'll get the summary later." It was surgical, a public professional demotion. Clean, irrefutable. He opened his mouth to argue, but the investor raised a finger, still focused on the document in front of him. "Michael, I'd appreciate it if you gave us the room." The door closed behind him with a sound that felt like closure. For a few seconds, I didn't move, didn't breathe. The table felt like a courtroom. Then the investor finally looked up. His voice was calm, but each word landed like a gavel. "Mr. Reed, may I call you Daniel?" "Yes, sir." "You built the financial model, correct?" "I did." "Did you also prepare the due diligence binders we received last week?" "Yes. Although the versions I submitted may differ from what you received later." Aaron turned his laptop around. 2 versions of the same file. One labeled Final VQ PDF, the other a Final V3 signed PDF. "Can you explain the discrepancy?" the investor asked. "Yes. One of these," I said, pointing to V3, "contains a falsified lease document. The signature page was created between midnight and 12:05 a.m. 2 nights ago. The timestamp metadata confirms it. The original file, V2, shows the real status, letter of intent only." He nodded once, slowly. "And who uploaded version 3? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The metadata did it for me. The investor tapped the table twice. "Aaron, get compliance on the line. Let's verify the chain." "Already done," Aaron said, sliding an iPad toward him. "The company server logs show user ID Embray admin. That's your CEO's account." My boss's name hung in the air like smoke. The investor closed the folder and leaned back. "We've been doing this long enough to know that when numbers don't match, trust doesn't either." His gaze moved to me. "Daniel, you understand the position this puts your company in?" "I do," I said. "And you understand that if we sign under false pretense, we assume the liability?" Yes. Good, he said, standing. Then here's what's going to happen. He walked to the glass wall, stared at the river below. We're freezing all movement on this deal. No closing, no payment, no commitment until we speak with your board directly. There will be an independent audit. Aaron, schedule it for tomorrow morning. Make sure legal receives the timestamp evidence. Yes, sir. He turned back to me. You'll be at that meeting? Of course. And I assume your boss will try to adjust the narrative. Don't engage. Just be present. I nodded, keeping my face neutral while my pulse drummed against my ribs. Thank you, Daniel, he said, softer now. You did the right thing. That was the moment. The micro-catharsis. The tiny flicker of justice before the storm. When my boss re-entered, the room was already half empty. He looked at me, then at the investor's vacant chair. What the hell happened here? I closed my notebook. They're postponing the signing. What? Why? Compliance review. Of what? The maintenance schedules, I said evenly, and the South facility lease. His pupils tightened. Who told them about that? Apparently, I said. The files spoke for themselves. He stepped closer, too close. What did you say in there? Nothing you wouldn't have if you'd stayed. He stared at me, nostrils flaring. You think you've outsmarted me, Daniel? I think, I said quietly, you've underestimated everyone else. He laughed once, sharp, humorless. You're finished here. Maybe, I said, standing, but so are you. And for the first time since the dinner, he didn't have a comeback. I walked out of that glass room into the corridor, past the coffee station where interns whispered. My reflection in the window looked almost calm, but inside, everything was noise. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt precise, like a blade that had finally found its angle. Outside, the wind off the river cut through my suit. My phone buzzed. A message from Aaron. Audit confirmed. Board notified. Expect a call tonight. It came at 7:42 p.m., the chairman's number. A deep voice, measured and cold. Daniel, we've received some troubling information. I'd like you in the boardroom at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Bring your data. Yes, sir. And Daniel, keep this between us. When I hung up, I realized something simple and absolute. Tomorrow wasn't going to be a meeting. It was going to be an execution. They thought I was gone. I wasn't. They thought I'd be the casualty, that by the time the boardroom lights came on, I'd be the one sitting under them, exposed, sweating, apologizing for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But that morning, I wasn't under the light. I was holding the switch. The boardroom at Lumen always looked like something out of a magazine. Long oak table, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a skyline that could make a man forget how small he really was. When I walked in at 8:55, the air was already heavy with the kind of stillness that means someone's career is ending before lunch. The chairs were full. Investors, legal, compliance, the chairman at the head, and to his right, my boss. He looked tired, but still dressed for the part. Perfect suit, confident smirk, a script already loaded behind his teeth. He didn't look at me. That was his tell. He only looked at people he still thought he could control. The chairman cleared his throat. Let's get this started. Mr. Bray, would you like to explain the situation regarding the Helios discrepancy? My boss leaned forward. Of course. He smiled with that calm that comes before collapse. It appears there's been some confusion in the documentation chain. A clerical issue, nothing more. The diligence files were prepared under my supervision, and I take full responsibility for any inconsistencies. Full responsibility, the phrase that's supposed to sound noble but is really just bait for sympathy. The chairman nodded. I see. And this file, he tapped his pen on a printed page, was uploaded by you? That's correct. I reviewed and finalized it personally. The room went still. Compliance slid a folder across the table. Sir, we've confirmed that the signature page on that document was digitally created using a template file from your workstation, time-stamped 12:03 a.m., 2 days prior. We also cross-verified login metadata and internal access logs. There was no authorization from the board for that modification. A slow blink. A beat too long before words came. "That's impossible," he said, his voice thinner now. "There must be some mistake." The chairman didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "It's not a mistake. We verified with Helios. They've agreed to suspend negotiations pending an internal audit. They've also requested that all future communication go through Mr. Reed." My boss turned, finally looking at me. The kind of look that mixes betrayal and disbelief, like he couldn't fathom how the background noise of his story had learned to speak. "Daniel," he said, almost pleading, "you told them." I didn't flinch. "No," I said. "The files did." That was it. No shouting, no drama. Just paperwork and silence, the two deadliest tools in business. The chairman leaned back. "Effective immediately, you're suspended pending investigation. Your system access has been revoked. HR will escort you out after this meeting." He tried to speak, but the sound caught in his throat, swallowed by the air-conditioned quiet. He gathered his tablet, his notes, his pride, fragments of a kingdom already gone, and stood. When he walked past me, his hand brushed my shoulder. Whether it was meant as defiance or a plea, I couldn't tell. But for the first time in years, I didn't feel smaller. I felt exact. The door closed behind him with a hiss that sounded almost like relief. After the meeting, the chairman stayed behind. "Helios wants to move forward," he said, "but this time under direct oversight. They asked for you to lead the transitional review. You'll act as interim director until the audit's complete." "Interim?" I asked. "For now," he said, a small, knowing smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. I nodded once. That was enough. The next weeks blurred. Reports, calls, meetings. The audit confirmed everything. Fabricated signatures, deferred maintenance buried in footnotes, manipulated charts. The company would survive, but it would carry a new signature now, one that didn't fake its own. When the official statement went out, my name wasn't mentioned. That's the thing about justice in corporate suits. It doesn't need applause. It just needs balance. Michael Bray resigned to pursue new opportunities. Helios increased their investment, and I stayed exactly where I was. Not higher, not louder, just steady. 3 months later, we hosted another dinner. Same ballroom, same floral centerpieces, different seating chart. As people filtered in, laughing the way people do when they think the danger's past, I stood by the door, scanning the names on the table cards. The chair at the center was empty. Mine now. But that wasn't the part that mattered. At the far end of the table, near the draft where no one wanted to sit, a young woman stood awkwardly, clutching her notepad. New hire. First week, probably terrified. She glanced around, unsure if she even belonged at the table. I walked over, pulled the chair out for her. "This seat's taken," I said quietly. She froze. "Oh, sorry." "For you," I added, smiling. "It's for you." She sat, blinking, not sure what to say. I just nodded and returned to my place. The irony wasn't lost on me. As the lights dimmed and the servers brought out the first course, the room settled into that familiar hum of ambition and champagne. But this time, I wasn't watching the hierarchy of chairs and names. I was watching the ripple, the quiet correction of balance. Because power, I realized, isn't in who gets the seat. It's in who decides to offer it. Outside the ballroom windows, the city lights looked like constellations rearranging themselves. Inside, I raised my glass, not for victory, but for silence, the kind that means something's finally right. And somewhere deep down, beneath the polished surface of the night, I knew. He took my chair once. Now, I don't need one to sit at the table.